fellow beings, and welcome to This Week I'm Learning, the podcast where we hosts dive through the cesspool of ideas floating around in our minds and bring forth only the shiniest, most interesting nuggets to share with all of you fine beings. This is episode 83, recorded March 21st, 2022, and I'm your host, Brandon Vader, also known as Captain Dracanus. Down below me, we have Seeker4761, also known as Colton Roper. Next to him, we have Tim Rhind, also known as Fake Farang. And then up above him, directly across from me, we have Cody Stratman, also known as Psycho Nitrous. How are all of you fine folks doing today?
I'm good.
Good.
I lost at board games last night, so that was fun. Yeah, I played Settlers of Catan and lost. Everybody wanted the steal from me. I was very popular to steal from. I wasn't even winning, and I was very popular to steal from.
Did you have all the wood? Is that
no,
what they needed?
No.
They
and
needed
it was
wood.
one of those games where we all wanted wood. The whole game we wanted wood. But no, I just had wheat and stone.
It's always difficult getting wood.
Yep.
You know, they do make a little blue pill. Have for many years that helps with getting wood, but
turns out that doesn't work in Settlers of Catan. You can take all the blue pills you want, and
now I'm not invited back to game night.
And then the table starts rising unevenly. Anyway, so
I'm
on
having
this
fun
week's
with.
go ahead, Tim.
Over here. So my week's just had some guests down here. Another Canadian living in Thailand who's building a house here, and he also built a house in Canada. So 6 months here, 6 months there.
Nice.
He's got a pretty good thing going, and I'm having fun making back bacon, and right now behind me somewhere I got some bread on the go. So that's my week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that bacon that you put up in the pictures gallery just makes my mouth drool. That looks amazing.
I gotta tell you, I'm very happy with it. It's very good. So sorry to interrupt you. I was just trying to do my little week thing there and carry on.
Yeah. No, Colton.
No worries. I'm not the only one that gets to talk.
Just a normal week.
But you would.
Nothing special.
I have Luke back from his week in California. That apparently went fairly well.
Nice.
Good.
That was good. It's good to have him back, though. That was a very weird feeling week. Empty nest is not good mental health wise. Feels very weird, very strange. Too much time for random projects that I shouldn't be diving into.
So many blue pills.
What? No.
You didn't get the Tinder up, huh? Oh wait, no, you have a
No.
girlfriend.
I have a girlfriend.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't do that then.
She was sadly unavailable. So. Oh well. Anyway.
Well, there we get enough of everybody's personal life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this week, still doing the 3-person rotation, so it's going to be Colton, Tim, and I talking. Cody is going to be the color commentary. I am hoping next week that I get to be the color commentary. Can I dibs that right now?
Why would you do that next week? Streaking episode. Isn't that discussion? That's a multiple of 12. It's multiple of 12.
80?
No, usually the discussions are multiple of 5.
Yeah.
The drinkings
Well,
are multiple
drinkings
of
are-
12. We really
Yeah.
need to probably change that so more of the drinking ones are discussion
I
ones.
think
84 is a multiple of 12, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Wait. 72, 84. Yeah, 60, 72, 84. It absolutely
Okay,
is.
7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Break out the
so
old calculator.
Thank you, math degree.
there we go. He maths things like his hat.
Totally worth it.
On a side note, I totally got to tell the story of you shutting down a mine at work the other day, and they're like, that asshole, but also very cool.
That's how I roll. I love ruining people's entire livelihoods, taking down corporations. It's just how I roll anymore.
Being like, you guys are fucking morons. You're doing the math wrong. You're not pulling that much gold out of the ground. Really?
You were lying, you dumb fucks.
Well, anyway, So Colton apparently this week is thinking Totally Spies.
Totally Spies.
I was gonna say, are we talking Totally Spies like the '90s cartoon?
Mid 2000s cartoon. Also a art.
Was it that late?
Yeah, it's mid 2000s, so that is not a 90s cartoon.
Oh.
Also a an artful masterpiece is what you mean. I love that show, but no.
I only watched a couple episodes, but I do remember thinking like, wow, they're cute.
Hey,
Yeah,
you know what? There's lipstick lasers. There's I can't think of everything. I only saw like 6 episodes myself, but important. As I said, very important to the cultural zeitgeist of the United States. Anyways, Tim is going to be talking about I did not lead that incorrectly, but Engage plus some other hopeful news.
See if you can guess it. These are one of the topics. I got 3 tiny ones.
Picard.
And Brandon can't think of a good tagline, but this needs to die.
Engage.
Yep.
Somebody's going to have
Engage.
a rant.
He got part of that, yeah.
I definitely am going to have a rant. Anyway, Colton, about this Totally Spies.
Totally fucking Spies. Yeah, the
See, I have
blonde
no
one,
idea
the
what you're
redhead,
talking
the
about.
dark-haired one. Really?
Nope,
have to
I
Google.
missed whatever this
wasn't
was.
the dark-haired
somehow.
one also of Asian descent? Wasn't that that when they started like doing the multicultural thing in all of the
Yeah,
TV shows?
kind of tried to get everything at one time in one character and called it inclusion.
Yep.
True.
Yeah, exactly. But it was only the one character. Everyone else was
White as the Drivens? No. Still a good show. Very good show, I think. I think it was good. But speaking of spies, though, we've actually had a few discussions about James Bond before on this podcast, whether it's the favorite actor to play the Swab spy or like favorite movie. We're not going to do it again. That's not an invitation. We all know who the best one is.
Connery.
God damn it. But I was wondering, do you guys think that a James Bond type spy could really exist in our modern world?
Not in the suave cavalier way that Bond exists, purely because once you become that well known, you are well known, and therefore you can no longer really be a spy.
But no one knows who James Bond is. He always introduces himself. Who are you? Oh, Bond. James Bond. Everyone says that. No one knows who James Bond is.
Thing is, most spies look like very nondescript, ordinary people who can blend in. So, I mean, you kind of want to blend in.
You would think. And Tim kind of brings up an interesting point. Specifically, the individual spy. Could that exist in today's world? Really? Because that's kind of what my topic is about. Because I was listening to the Wall Street Journal podcast, and I know, I'm kind of a big deal. They were talking about how spies have adapted to modern technology. Because not that long ago, espionage was actually relatively easy. I mean, you could go from one town to another, being a doctor in one, and could be a salesman in another, and no one would be the wiser. And honestly, the history of scams and grifts is actually a topic I will definitely cover some other time on this show, because it's utterly fascinating, the history of grifts. But that's another time. So now with everyone having a digital footprint, biometrics, surveillance, literally everywhere, espionage has actually changed from the olden days of pretending to be a businessman in a foreign country while really being a double agent. And that is actually one of the big things that is different. The world's second oldest profession, as some have called it, used to be a very lonely affair. You might have a contact with the CIA headquarters if you're an American spy, or MI6 if you're British or whatever. But you were basically on your own when you're performing these activities. Now, due to the way the world has become, you would need like massive teams working around the clock in order just to help you get through security at some modern airports. Say, if you tried to sneak onto what's the main airport in Israel, the one that has the highest security in the world.
I should know this, but
I was gonna say, if
can't
this
think
says
of I
It's your
really
wheelhouse,
should
Cody.
know this. I should. All they need to do is get the tip from that 80-year-old woman that keeps sneaking onto airplanes, and she's done it like 4 times. Like
might be a spy.
There's a lady from one of the southern states in the U.S. that keeps doing it. I think she's finally like in prison or something, but she did it like 3 or 4 times. So maybe she's a spy.
Maybe she's got entire teams trying to get to Florida or whatever. But it's also difficult to have, say, multiple different aliases on different credit cards due to anti-theft protections and all this kind of stuff. The
KYC.
The very same cybersecurity measures can be used to protect
face recognition software too. That's
exactly
come more into play.
Yeah, all of these technologies can all be used to protect government secrets that can only be accessed by multiple biometric security features, with access only given through a thorough background check done by entire government agencies. So we're the very act of trying to, at least major state secrets, arguably is more difficult than it used to be, where you could just, hey, I'm Bill, I'm the new security guy. Oh, okay, here you go. Here's access to the entire where all the damn skeletons are buried. Who knows?
Right.
That's why most spies are people who are already in place and then they get turned.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. I was just going to ask.
Like peeing in a Moscow hotel.
Yeah.
On somebody.
I wonder if that's why radicalization has become such a thing since in the post 9/11 era.
Right.
Because it's easier to find somebody that has, a little chip, has a flaw that you can kind of like pick at, poke at, radicalize when they're already in a position and be like, hey, since you're already in that position, we're going to funnel resources and funnel stuff to you to get you a promotion to that next position where you'll have access to the stuff we need.
I wonder if that's foreshadowing. Did you read my topic already?
Nope. Am I stealing your topic?
You're stealing
finally?
my fucking topic this week. Damn it. It's all right. It's bound to happen.
It's what you get.
So when you take all of that, along with many other factors, the days of the spy and the trench coat on the corner are basically over. Their traditional operations are orders of magnitude more expensive. Cyber warfare and hacking using massive amounts of data and powerful artificial intelligence is basically the way of the future. It's where war is going to be fought. It's where we're going to do transactions with the fucking metaverse. You know how it is. It's going to be a big deal. But don't worry, guys. Tim, dry those tears, because there's always a place for a human to do basic stuff like that, to be on the ground doing stuff. It is not nearly as glamorous or romantic as it was in the past. The modern world has led to an increase in what is known as spying in true name, which is essentially what Brandon talked about, where a person goes to a foreign country or is already established in a foreign country as a truly legitimate business person, doctor, cashier, or whatever. They are truly the person that they say they are, and spends years legitimizing this whatever they're doing. This makes sense because, it is hard to pretend to be someone else due to all those factors mentioned earlier. And you know what? It's just the just be you kind of situation. It's a very modern take and very, very soft way to look at it. Which is, like I said, like we learned in kindergarten. And that legitimate person becomes a spy over time. And so kind of where it's all heading to. As Brandon mentioned, they're more about finding the person with the chip, with the potential grievance, or with their government or whatever, to kind of go with it, because it's pretty much impossible to pretend to be someone else with the way the world is. So,
I recommend. I really recommend reading Snowden's book on this stuff, because while now a lot of the data in the book is aged 10 years, it's still very intriguing. So, what is it? Permanent record, which actually shows that you have a permanent record on the internet of everything you do. So that is the reason why it's difficult too.
Friend of the show, Edward Snowden. But no.
And now we're on like 20 lists. Yeah.
You know what? After as many episodes that we've done, we better be on some fucking list somewhere. So I
Just
will.
that list needs to leak so then we can get some more viewers.
We're cool. We're cool, guys.
We're cool people over here. He's okay. He's okay. You come, you like. I'm sorry, that was maybe
Amazing.
That's a little Transylvania.
That's what that is, yeah. So I'll conclude with this. So with the gig economy the way it is good to know that even people in espionage have to have a second job. Maybe there'll be an app for that one day. So like Spy Dash or Only Spies or something like that. I'm so proud of myself for that ending. Thank you very much. I'm here for the rest of the podcast.
farmersonly.com.
Which is very different from onlyfarmers.com.
Onlyfarmers.com.
Oh.
It's illegal in most states. But anyways, the content.
Not Alabama.
Not some of those states. But Tim, how about you? You enlighten us with your small topics. I'm very interested to see what you've learned about.
Yeah, well, here's just a little tidbit of news. It's not really so much as a topic, but you know that they can install Windows 11 on some computers that aren't so-called, don't have approved hardware for Windows 11.
Mm-hmm. Like TPM.
But Microsoft has decided that it looks like that Microsoft is going to be making all those computers have a watermark on the screen. Have you heard about this?
Yep, that was actually one of my backup topics.
So on the screen it's going to say system requirements not met.
Yep.
And you're probably not going to be able to change that until somebody else figures out how to do it.
Oh, I'm sure that something on the Pirate Bay will come up and they'll have a hack for it easy.
Yeah.
Along
with making. Go ahead.
Okay. My personal issue with it is that it doesn't actually tell you how to fix the hardware problems.
Just you've been a bad boy, but we're not going to tell you how to fix your homework. It's just wrong.
So like a lot of the problem that keeps popping up is the TPM module, Trusted Platform Module. So a lot of this mainly affects custom system builders. So
could you explain
like
what
us.
that is for people who aren't familiar with them?
So a Trusted Platform Module is basically a kind of a coprocessor, but it deals specifically with encryption and security functionality. Basically, having a TPM in your computer and enabled and tied into the operating system makes it that much more secure, and it's also what your BitLocker drive encryption is tied to, along with, of course, backup security key and stuff like that.
Okay.
But there are a lot of off-the-shelf motherboards that you use in custom PC building that don't have TPMs on them, because up until now it has never been an issue. It has been a add-on thing, and it's again mostly used in drive encryption. There are other uses for it, but most of the time you're not encrypting your desktop drives. Like if you're encrypting your desktop drives, you probably work for a company and that's their standard. It's not you as a consumer going, I need to encrypt my drives. Yes, or Mr. Spy versus Spy down here. He would encrypt his drives.
Always.
But the big thing that people don't understand is drive encryption. Basically, if you encrypt a drive, what that means is you would rather lose the data on the drive than potentially let someone have access to that data. So nothing I have, I mean my laptop's encrypted because it's BitLocker and whatever. The chances of it getting stolen out of my car and then hacked are much greater than my desktop disappearing out of my house to get hacked.
Clearly you've never watched the first episode of the show Chuck.
Fair enough. Yep. But so
it sounds. The problem I have with the TPM is it's a problem that they're manufacturing. It feels like. I mean, I know cybersecurity is super important, but really, and
so
companies aren't your friends. So
yeah, what it is, depending on your viewpoint, what it is Microsoft going, okay, you guys don't understand how important this is to have security, so we are going to force you to have security.
The Apple method.
Yes. But the flip side of that coin is also it's going to drive PC sales. Because your average home user...
And new licenses. Yeah.
Yep. Your average home user is going to be looking at their computer going, okay, well, I got this free upgrade to Windows 11, but now it's saying unsupported hardware.
Yeah.
Or, hey, there's this really cool feature, or there's this software that only runs on Windows 11, but I can't upgrade to it because I don't have this thing. So they're going to go to Best Buy, they're going to go to Walmart, they're going to go wherever, they're going to get a new PC and basically throw away their old one because
comes this new Windows license. Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah, some of the stuff coming down the Microsoft pipeline is not very consumer friendly. There's a leak in a developer,
yes,
that they're going to be they're trying. I think they said they're testing it out. They're going to do it. They're going to put they're looking at putting ads in like the File Explorer and stuff like that.
Oh.
Okay. Before you all get too disgusted, because I did the same thing. This was also on my backup list. Okay. Before you all get too disgusted on this, this was also on my backup list, and I had started writing an article about it, and going, "Oh my God! Think of the children. What shall we do?" Okay, so Microsoft has come out and went, "Look, we're not putting. This is not a space for third-party ads. This is." The idea behind it is basically that this is going to be a spot where they could go, hey, have you thought about OneDrive? And well, that's still a little...
Microsoft.
This is something that has already been done. They are already advertising for their OneDrive software, their Earphone software,
True,
their Office software.
But they may get a competition. They may get anti-competition lawsuit.
That's the thing.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. They've already gotten in trouble for this type of bullshit before.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's gonna happen
and
again.
this is why I think right now they're only testing it. I do not see them turning it on anytime soon. I think what's going to happen is that it's going to be like they're going to start slowly, like with new PC builds or new things. It's going to be like a one-time, like, hey, have you thought about including OneDrive on your subscription? And then you're going to close it once, and it's never going to come back. That's going to be how it starts. It's going to be how it starts. And then, yes, because as we have all seen, we are living in the darkest timeline. This will eventually get to the point where you are getting ads for, hey, we see that you're browsing to your, car picture directory on your project. Do you need more parts for your 76 Blazer? Click here to find more parts.
Also, based off of your Alexa data and your Microsoft data and then your Google data, we see that you've been discussing with your friends about whatever. We're going to put that here. Facebook Messenger or Facebook app is the biggest offender to that.
Messenger app. It is the Facebook Messenger app.
I thought it was actually the Facebook app itself, not the Messenger app.
So Facebook app only if you have it running. The Messenger app runs in the background at all times. And I was actually talking with a coworker about this. And then she was like, oh, so what? Like if we start talking about how you need new ski boots, you're going to start getting ads for ski boots? And I'm like, yeah, here. Set my phone down on the table. We talked about ski boots for a couple minutes, and then I opened up Facebook, scrolled down a little bit, and I'm like, hey, look right there. Ski boots.
I tested that
and
with the
any of your friends, your family might get ski boot ads too, because they know who's in your group.
And because this could be a great gift idea.
Yeah.
This is where we're going to have to get the China government version of Microsoft in order to not get these. Sorry, Tim.
I want to move you on to this
Tim.
to the second topic.
Such a good topic.
Yeah.
love
You
it.
know how years ago they even thought that we would never be able to travel the speed of sound. So you got to keep all that. You got to have some optimism in this next topic. I don't even quite understand the article as it's based, and none of this has been peer reviewed. But there's a new theoretical new rocket engine that could reach 99% the speed of light.
Ooh.
And there's a NASA engineer, David Burns, I'm going to read from the article, has produced an engine concept that he says could theoretically accelerate to 99% the speed of light, all without using propellant. He posted on the NASA Technical Reports server under the heading Helical Engine. And like I say, don't ask me to understand this theory, but it works by exploding the way mass can change at relativistic speeds. And so it's evidently creating quite a excitement in some of the tech world. But it does have, of course, again, all these things has its problems. But if you keep, an open mind, they never thought they could. The things we never thought we could do that we can do today. Now I'm going to skip part of it. Let me just change my background picture, which I accidentally changed while we were talking earlier. There we go. Can I make that smaller? So you can see more. There you go. And there's some of the. Can you imagine some of those speeds?
Yeah, so Earth to Moon, 1.3
okay.
seconds.
According to the principle of the conservation of momentum, in which the momentum of a system remains constant in the absence of any external forces, this should not be completely. It should be not completely possible. Whatever. Well, but there's a special relativity loophole. Where objects gain mass as they approach light speed. So if you place weight with ions and the box with a loop, you can have the ions moving faster at one end of the loop and slower at the other. But they say this thing is going to have to be a fairly large size, around 200 meters or 656 feet long, and 12 meters in diameter. But in the vacuum of a space, they say this thing could work. Now, when you think about that, I think, oh my God, it almost sounds like a Star Trek Enterprise nacelle, because those things got to be huge. So, I'll post a link to the article. Like I say, it's even though it doesn't have a ton of detail, it's above my pay grade to quite understand.
I'm kind of familiar.
I think I'll trust the NASA people on this.
I'm kind of familiar with these type of theoretical engines. There's also an ion engine theoretical ion engine that people are pretty excited about. One possible long distance type of travel method could be a solar sail, using the energy from the sun to just because all it is just acceleration. So, but the issue that people are starting to have, even with technology that's right now, because the I don't know how familiar you guys are with the F1 series race cars, but the issue that they're starting to run into is the technology is powerful enough to get super fast and everything, but it's the human body in terms of acceleration, accelerating forces that's going to be the next big thing in terms of transportation. At least that what I've seen so far. I'm certainly not an expert, but accelerating to go 240,000 miles from the Earth to the Moon that quickly, that the amount of energy in the opposite direction in order to counteract it, that's where it's going to be really interesting. If they can figure that out, then it becomes that much more possible in terms of if they wanted to transport a human, for that matter, or anything alive.
Right. And I'm sure you have to do it where a place where there's not much gravity as well. You probably couldn't do it like they say in the diagram, too close to any celestial bodies.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine the gravity effect on a human body accelerating.
So using some quick napkin math, 12 G's of force, which is the maximum human force that we've really exerted on somebody without like catastrophic
Them blowing up.
levels of damage. And I mean, they're even I think we talked about this on one of the episodes a while back where he sustained 12 G's for like less than a second or something like that, and it actually like damaged his vision temporarily and a couple other things. If we were to somehow be able to accelerate at 12 G's at a survivable, sustainable rate, somehow withstanding that, it would take 4.85 years to accelerate to 300 million meters per second. So 12 G's equals 117.6798 meters per second acceleration. If we flatten that out instead to...
But once you're out in space, though, you don't really have that much of a
Well,
problem.
the gravity isn't the
Geez.
problem because
Yeah,
it's
but
the
it's
accelerating
still-
forces.
it's constant acceleration.
As you go, you still have
Because that's all
know.
gravity is acceleration, technically.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like being in a Tesla at max acceleration indefinitely. So if we tone that down to like 1.5 Gs, because I bet we could sustain that for a pretty prolonged level. That is only 14.709975 meters per second. If we take that 300 million, divide that by 14.7, divide that by 60 to end up with hours, divide that by 24 to end up in days, divide that by 365 to end up in years, it would take 38.8 years at 1.5 G acceleration.
Boom!
To reach that
Drop
speed.
some math on you, motherfuckers. Didn't think you'd learn something in This Week I'm Learning, did you?
Math. It's so fun.
Not even
It
once.
can.
But I love that these things are we'll never see it in our time. But when I read this topic, I was also thinking about your topic of different classes of civilizations. So it's at least it's a striving to.
Well,
to
it's
advance.
interesting when you think of like a 100-year-old person. Think about what they've seen in their entire lifetime. I mean, if we could somehow continue on that growth rate, which arguably we can't, but they also thought all of science and all of history was basically over in the 1900s because they didn't. People are stupid and like to make big claims. So who knows?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, I'll give you my third topic. Or do you want something else?
I was just going to add one little thing. This helical engine, you could put together a probe. I think this would be really good for a probe while we're figuring out how to deal with inertia, the gravity or the G-force, the acceleration issues on the human body.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty easy to make a fairly solid, substantial, satellite or probe or something that would be able to handle 12 or 20 or even more G's of acceleration, which could then put this, in the orbit of Alpha Centauri within 10 to 15 years or something in that range.
Yeah, but then you have, well, hell, okay, yeah. You get all into relativity and it starts to blow the brain apart.
Yeah, I mean,
how much time is here? And
the shipboard, computer would register much less time, but
yeah.
Yeah, but we could calculate that and account for that, at least theoretically.
Okay, so my third topic is something that's actually in play right now. It's not at a scale that's going to solve the global warming problem, but it's probably one more of these technologies that are very interesting. It already exists. They've built it in Iceland. They've built a factory that takes CO2 from the air and turns it into rock. This plant takes in air, it removes the carbon dioxide from it, and then to get my details right. It's called Carb Fix is the name of the company, and one of the advantages they do have though is they have geothermal to provide them the electricity, because geothermal is like no problem in Iceland. Excuse me. So fans draw in this ambient air and release it, largely purified of CO2 using their filters, and then they pump it down into the ground a distance of 3 kilometers. And dissolved in fresh water, the gas is injected under high pressure into the basalt rock between 800 and 2,000 meters underground. It fills these cavities in the rock, and a chemical reaction turns it into calcified white crystals. The solution fills the rock cavities, and the solidification process begins. A chemical reaction turning it to calcified white crystals occurs when the gas comes into contact with the calcium, magnesium, and iron in the basalt, and it takes up to 2 years, and the CO2 petrifies. So they could do this in Iceland because they have abundant energy through geothermal. But there's just one more of those technologies that people are looking into to try to handle CO2 concentrations.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Right now, the amount they do is just definitely not going to solve our problem, though. Yeah. And it's probably not a viable thing everywhere because the problem is it does require energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Requires energy, requires depth too. From what
we do have a free ball of energy in the sky. I bet you we could, if we ever get more efficient on that shit, which is the big problem in batteries. God damn it.
Yeah, and then dealing with northern climates too. Like there's a lot of caveats, unfortunately, with solar.
Well, yeah, but again, that's only with a 20% efficiency, which is like the best they can get right now.
Which is impressive because before it was like they were touting 13 as being high. Yeah. So 20%. I didn't realize they were up to that at this point. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So for Brandon, who can't think of a good time, but this needs to die. Okay, it sounds like a rant. This is going to go. Give you lots of time.
What needs to die, Brandon?
Oh, yeah. Well,
here we go. You start with well.
Oh, shit.
I feel like the open world and crafting shtick has gotten out of hand. And I know, I literally just talked about something similar back in November with the Battle Royale genre, but I'm adding open world to that list. And it's sad, really, because this is what I wanted from gaming since my first game of Galaga. The whole, wouldn't it be cool if this were 3D? What does my ship look like? Where does my pilot get out to stretch? I wish this was fully fleshed out and a full universe in its own right. I remember the same thing when I was playing Pokemon Blue on the original Game Boy. Wouldn't it be awesome when I can see the Pokemon running around, when I can explore this space in 3 dimensions and enjoy the sights? Well, yes, if Pokemon Legends Arceus is anything to judge off of that, it's fucking awesome. However, not every game needs to be open world. Some games make more sense to being a linear narrative. And that storyline, that narrative, is something that increasingly gets lost in the massive spanning, sprawling, and stumbling worlds that are in this open, generated game scene that we have now. And I've got a bone to pick with crafting too, but that's a conversation for another time.
Craft a bone, baby.
Yeah. Let me craft this laser rifle from a bone and a bag of sodium.
It depends on the level of the techno. I will defend this. I will defend this hill.
Crafting is a totally different conversation.
I will actually defend.
I promise you we'll have that conversation later.
Is it though? In the sense of all these big games are what is it that Yahtzee Croshaw says? The Jiminy Cockthroat, open world,
Open world survival crafting.
with crafting and collectibles or whatever.
Yep.
So
it's on the AAA side.
I agree
So-
that there's a lot of games. Okay, I will let you finish your monologue first, and then
Yes.
then I have some
it's on.
input.
My monologue. Thank you.
Needs a skull.
Ah, alas, poor Yorick. Anyway, what really set off this realization was games like No Man's Sky, Just Cause 3, Starbound, Everspace, and even to some extent Skyrim. These games with unlimited or very large play areas means that there's a ton of potential content to experience, but due to the way procedural generation works, everything ends up lending to the some sense of sameness over time. Some games are way quicker to come off that required suspension of disbelief, No Man's Sky being one of the bigger ones, because essentially the whole point of the game, as it was sold, is that each planet is its own unique thing. But let's be honest, once you've seen one or two of the stompy worm things with a geck face, you've seen them all. Sure, they're different colors or have spikes or fins or a unicorn horn, but the general shape is nearly indistinguishable.
This is
I've
like
gotten way
Guns and
off.
Borderlands. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Tim, but this is the
Yes.
way I feel about it. Is Guns and Borderlands? You have all of the guns. Wait, but they don't.
What
There's nothing
numbers
that
are
feels
higher?
good. Yeah. Or, yeah.
I didn't
Anyway.
get time to get attached to my gun because I got a new gun already. It means nothing.
Exactly. It's like every time you go out and do something, it's like, oh, here's this thing with bigger numbers. I guess I'm going to attach this thing with bigger numbers.
Okay. I have more input on this, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna hold. I'm gonna
Okay.
hold because I have.
Component thing is
two
the
more
same sort of
paragraphs.
thing, right?
2 more
Okay.
paragraphs. I've gotten way off on a rant, though. And what I'm actually talking about today is Ubisoft's announcement of their new cloud-based technology called Scalar, which allows teams to make even bigger worlds. It's essentially a platform that will let them offload work to an unlimited number of machines, giving them a infinite amount of computing power. These air quotes are because I actually am quoting Ubisoft. This power could give them the opportunity to generate more interesting things inside of the space, making for a better experience, but likely it's just going to end up in a dick measuring competition so that they can
So
say
many
the next
fucking
Assassin's
towers.
Creed.
It's just gonna be towers for days.
Yeah. It's gonna just be a dick waving competition to say that the next Assassin's Creed is now an entire continent of worth of infinitely diversified AI generated content, which means more sameness. Procedural generations, open world, and crafting for the sake of the mechanic, just for the sake of being like, it's an open world, needs to stop. It needs to die, and it needs to be quick. If it makes sense to be included in the story, great, have at it. I personally can't wait for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It's going to add to the depth of the franchise to have an open world. It makes sense that as a Pokemon trainer, if you want to go left out of town instead of right out of town, you should be able to. You should be able to go just about anywhere. See the Pokemon as they mingle on the grass, bask in the sun, and get hit repeatedly by that fucking rock rather than the Pokeball because I hit the wrong goddamn button again. Seriously, though, I want games to get back to being a medium for storytelling rather than the sandbox in which to play in. Sandboxes are nice, but sometimes reading that choose-your-own-ending Goosebumps book for the 2nd, 3rd, or 17th time just feels more rewarding at the end of the day.
End of
That's
rant,
my
I
rant.
assume.
Okay. All right. Here's what I have to ice your cake with. So
Ooh,
I
hot.
actually do agree, but that's not a euphemism.
Now
I
you're thinking
do agree that,
I'm gonna ice your cake.
I'm gonna ice your cake, baby.
and that's the title of the episode.
Putting it in now.
Nice.
I have to agree with you. Absolutely. Procedural generation done without any sort of handcrafted places sucks. It's terrible. You get the blue squiggly face dinosaur. You get that's like it doesn't register as something that you care about. Again, and this is what narrative
Soulless.
is all about. Yeah, soulless. You do not care about the thing, the item, the weapon, the whatever. Done properly, you can care about objects. You can care a lot about objects. I'm sure some of us can say what our favorite weapon in a video game is, and we can talk for an hour just on that. Please don't right now, but we could. And this is what's getting lost in some of these games, where it's like, we now have, and they're touting it is exactly as you're saying, we now have, 30,000 guns that you can choose from. Wow, we have so many. Like, look at this emporium we have, or we have the entire continent, or we have the most playable space in any game. Who cares?
We have
if all of that-
5,620 square kilometers of
fuck,
space for
I
you to
could
explore.
download freaking
I prefer a story.
whatever the engine the Epic Games uses. What's that engine?
Unity.
Unity. I could download the Unity engine and generate a fucking continent-sized world, but that's not impressive. Like,
No. What does it matter
Exactly.
if the deer you see on the East Coast looks, acts, and is the exact same? It is literally a clone of the deer you see 27 hours into the journey
Painted blue.
that's now painted blue, or, oh, well, this one has horns. Oh,
And this
huh.
one has
Funny
appendages.
how all of
like-
the horns look the exact fucking same.
Yeah.
But that's
And
why I
here's-
enjoyed the first Assassin's Creed, because they had a story, and they had an end. They basically each one had an ending in a way.
Yep.
Well, and-
each episode
what's-
had an ending.
yeah,
the,
and
the story
even though
was
I'm
interesting, and the historical relevance that those buildings and stuff, some of them existed back then. I found that was an interesting experience.
well, the thing about Assassin's Creed, because arguably they are kind of responsible for the current state of the open world in some ways. Not that it's a bad thing, because when
And
they-
I wanna-
the Ubisoft specifically. I mean, we're Ubisoft, not
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed. They again the tower based, open up an area, icons on the map kind of stuff. That they're the one they're doing it the most generic, boring way possible at this point. At least in my opinion. But when
AAA
Assassin's Creed 1
developers.
and 2, the actual
I liked
it was
those
it was
towers,
crafted.
actually.
It was but it was crafted. It was new, so it wasn't the same thing that everyone else is doing. It was crafted. It was a going back to my gameplay loop thing. The actual feel of running around climbing the towers was a visceral experience. It was fun to just climb those towers, like Spider-Man.
And that's
the one
that's
thing you have to get right.
exactly what
Yeah,
that-
in any of these games, in any of these open world things, there's certain things you have to get right. In Spider-Man, you have to get web swinging right. Everything else can be secondary, but if you don't get web swinging right, you're not gonna have a good fucking Spider-Man game, because it's a core gameplay element. And I think, going to what Brandon said, all of these companies saying, also add in the fact that, oh, we have 500 hours of gameplay. Like, that's who has fucking 500 hours of time?
Yeah, and
But-
what's more important is having, and that was the second part of what I wanted to say, is having, you can do the open world correctly, but unfortunately, it takes human hours and time. Because if you do it in a crafted way, and this is what we're all coming back to with our Assassin's Creed memory, with probably I was really thinking about it, best single-player game of all time, which is Subnautica. Does survival, it does crafting, and it does narrative. In one of the
does.
best ways that I've seen narrative done in
Yeah,
that
it's-
kind of game.
Its narrative isn't bolted on in that game. It is interwoven into the actual gameplay. It's I mean, I'm not personally a big fan of From Software games, which is Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and all that, but that is something they do incredibly well. They're I mean, Elden Ring is kind of like the big thing right now, and everyone's saying it's the best open world, partly because everything is crafted. None of it's computer generated. They spent, as Cody said, they spent ungodly amounts of human hours, and there's some other things that are iffy about that, but you could see that a human being built that random section of that field because they had an artistic vision, a reason for that to exist.
Yep.
That's what's missing from all of these, because again, it's all about bigger is better, because in the early 2000s that was the big thing. This GTA map has I don't know 500 square miles of playground
Just
stuff,
Cause 2 was the one that blew them all away at first.
and the same kind
And
of
that
thing.
was all handcrafted.
And here's the thing, like looking at Grand Theft Auto, that is a franchise that makes sense to have an open world experience. If it were linear, it would not be Grand Theft Auto anymore. You would not be able to have the random chaos of, I'm going to beat this hooker, steal her money, hop in this car, drive across the city, hire another hooker, beat her back for my money, and then drive down these group of gangbangers.
Well, that's part of.
I'm going to get 5 stars and see how bad it really is to face the military. Oh, ow, 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 dead.
And I think you actually made a very good point about the difference between an open world and a sandbox game.
Yeah.
Because an open world with a big open map isn't necessarily a sandbox. And I would go back to the Ubisoft model. That is not a sandbox game. A sandbox game is where the player can walk in this direction and they might face something that'll kill them right away, or they might, or who knows, but they're somewhat exploring Minecraft is very similar as well. It's not so much make your own fun, it's make your own fun in a world where there's shit to do and do whatever you want, versus the Ubisoft model, which is still basically a linear. It's very linear in the sense of you have to do these certain things first to open up parts of the map, and that's kind of the fight right now between an open world concept versus a sandbox. And if you don't get if there's the shit to do, the gameplay itself isn't fun, you're gonna have a shitty open world.
If all you're finding in your sandbox is cat turds, maybe it's time to find somewhere else to play.
They ain't chocolates, bro.
No.
Oh, that's a brilliant statement. That's a brilliant analogy.
That's a good place to end.
Do better, AAA. You have all the money. You have the ability to make good stuff, and yet
Yep.
Yeah, I think the
Just a
best
cash
is
grab.
the
Say,
combination. Like,
This-
if you have maybe a, partly procedural generated to get some of the space that's required, and then everything else handcrafted. Maybe that's...
Look at how Star Citizen is doing it. They have these tools to procedurally generate places, locations, outposts, truck stops, but it's all done in a way that makes it still feel like there's artists that are still going in there and going, okay, well, here's what the generator spit out. Here's how I'm going to tweak it to make it feel like this space, this place that we're trying to make. And then they put it in and make all the little touches.
well, it kind of goes back to what you said about Star Citizen. At least with the vision that they have for it, it makes sense to be an open world, and arguably that is a sandbox in some ways. It's going to be. I don't know if they're going to be able to narrate interwove the universe into the narrative, but it's also about space, which it's not a lot in space sometimes. Sometimes you're just flying between two objects. It's just a fact. That's the immersion factor in that sense.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, here's the other thing is they are going to have a single player aspect to it. They're going to have Squadron 42, which is set in the universe just, 10 or 20 years before you are in the persistent universe, canonically storyline.
Let's be careful and not turn this into a Star Citizen thing.
Yeah. But they're going to have that single player experience that is going to be very crafted. It's going to be very detailed, very hands-on. And I think where they have to really be careful is doing so well on the single player experience that you go through that, feel very connected to the world, very connected to the characters and everything. And then to end that and dump you into the, kind of like Colton was saying, the sandbox that is Star Citizen rather than Squadron 42. If there's not that same level of polish when you start getting into places for missions and for trading and for things, if there's not that same level of detail in the open world, the people who go through that single player experience are going to be very disappointed, very dejected when they get into that open world sandbox and it feels hollow.
With the deer with 3 heads and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's going to be really interesting. And I mean, part of that goes back to the subsumption AI system that they have, where people are going to have jobs and they're going to have activities to do. And that kind of technology hasn't been seen in other spaces before, other games before.
Oblivion had a version of it where it was very rudimentary. It was like if you would steal all the fruit in one, or all the food in one town, the AI would kind of go a little bit wonky. But it was a very rudimentary version. So
and that's part of the making the world feel somewhat real and lived in. Because go back to GTA, part of the problems that they had these big open worlds, but we're talking downtown Los Angeles look-alike, and there's hardly anybody walking around. There's hardly any cars. You're just like, it's almost there, but there's not that extra bit that makes it feel alive instead of just a big open empty space.
Well, and then we're also still missing that. Like right now, if I wanted to go crazy, GTA style, and shotgun the door of the apartment complex next door to me to see what the person that lives on their basement floor, what their apartment looks like. I could. I would be going to jail.
Again, but you can do everything one time.
Yep. It's only a war crime once. It's only illegal once. But yeah, that's kind of part of my other problem with these just huge maps, is getting to spots where you can't go into the house, where you can't go into the foyer of the apartment complex.
That's fucking unacceptable in today's world. That building shouldn't be a damn empty box.
Nope.
If it's on the map, you should be able to go to it.
In most cases, they're in recent
if it's
games,
an open
they've
world
been pretty
sandbox.
good about. Yeah, they've been pretty good about that. I would say it was just based off of the technology back in the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With today's
2000s.
world, there's no reason.
Yeah.
Which maybe in the next 10 years it'll never be a thing again with some of the technologies coming out. But
and again, that's the bad part about man hours and what Colton was alluding to, that you can only make so much content, and you can only spend so many lifetimes of people making these games. So while we're arguing for handcrafted worlds, if people need these big worlds, there has to be procedural generation too. It's just you can't. I think
simulate it all.
Yeah, you can't rely on only one or the other unless you are making a game that doesn't need to require this. If you look at like the Half-Life series or something else, that honestly I don't know if we would need a open world Half-Life game. If Half-Life 3 ever came out, I mean, Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx is a Half-Life game that recently came out, and it was outstanding in VR as not a open world game, and one of the best games of all time too, in my opinion. So you can do this. You can craft a story. You can get good reviews. You can create an excellent game that is not open world. And you can do an excellent open world game too. But as Brandon's saying, don't create it for the sake of creating it.
Don't create it to add a tag to your box, to your game.
Because some executive is like, this is hot right now. Let's turn this historically corridor-based shooter into a... Just make it good. Make it good.
Yeah.
Get good.
Yeah. Make it make sense with the story of the game. Make it a good experience. Or don't include it. That's all I want. I want games, again, to go back to being a narrative. And there are so many games out right now where you're dropped into this open world, given a thread of the story, and told, go out and explore, find the story of your own. And it's like,
I don't have time for that shit.
I don't have time.
You tell me a story. You tell me a fucking story.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about how many lifetimes of developers, when you total in all of the developer hours to a game, how many lifetimes that consumes. Think about trying to go through and experiencing everything in a game. Like truly 100%ing any of these modern titles now.
You don't have enough time.
There's nothing wrong with having an ending.
Possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
So.
And speaking of endings,
Yep.
This is a wonderful time to end. So, Tim, tell us where we can find you.
Our Thai Journey on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Excellent. Cody,
do you
where
have
can
an
we find
official
you?
line? Tim, do you have an official line account? You should get an.
Well, I got a line account, but you need to set.
No.
For another line account, you need another phone number, right?
Well, I know that there's official line accounts. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Carry on.
That's just curious. I am Cody Stratman. I do not have one of those official line accounts. Just FYI. You can find me on the Instagram as Zito Valder. You can find me on YouTube as Striving to Fail. You can find me on Steam as Psychonitrous. I play games. I enjoy life. And I like airports and stuff. Good day. Colton.
Name's Colton Roper. You can find me on all the socials as Seeker4761. I'm also...
That is the amount of aliases he has for his spy network.
that are known. To be fair.
All of the burned aliases.
Fair.
Yeah. So the world knows me as Seeker4761, but who knows? I'm also a pretty consistent Twitch streamer at twitch.tv/Seeker4761. And I'm also a contributor to thetechpirate.net. And I guess Brandon.
Okay. I am Brandon Vader, also known as Captain Dracanis. You can find me on Steam as Captain Dracanis. I literally just changed my name as Cody was saying his Steam name because I realized that I needed to set it on there. Glorious. I have not started streaming again, but I will start contributing to thetechpirate.net again soon. So you can find me on there. And possibly doing videos on thetechpirate.net on YouTube. Or the Tech Pirate. The Tech Pirate. Yes. But yeah. Thanks for joining us on this episode of This Week I'm Learning. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as on YouTube at This Week I'm Learning. For your social media peeps out there, you can find us on Twitter at TWIL. If you'd like to contact us, you can, of course, send an email to twil@thetechpirate.net. We'll see you all next week.
Bye!
Bye-bye! I do have one good thing to report on Microsoft that wasn't quite enough for a full topic, but could be an interesting little after hours. They tested they got Xbox streaming to work on the Steam Deck.
Yep. On using Edge.
Yep.
That is
using a
that is
beta
such a
version of
brilliant
Edge.
workaround. I fucking love that. That was brilliant.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's how, if I want to play Xbox streaming on my iPad, I have to go into Safari and load up the streaming site from there. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about like using the Steam Deck for streaming that wasn't Steam streaming, and now it's like,
Dude,
Huh.
Xbox Game Pass, the cloud gaming is fucking incredible. I am blown away
We got some bread.
how good it is, honestly.
Tim's breading it up.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'll include pictures later on.
he's the real breadwinner of that household.
There you go. I bring home the bacon.
Ah, yes, you do.
All right.
We're done.
Puns.
And with that, are we really stopping?
Stop this
We
shit.
are?
It's over.
Okay.
It's over.
Really stopping
Okay.
on that end.